Hey everybody, I'm Curtis.
And I'm Hannah.
And this is Love at First Fright. Do you know who I am?
I don't.
I'm the beekeeper.
Oh. Oh my god, Jason Statham?
Hello, love.
I loved your work as the shark in Finding Nemo. Oh my god.
Did he do the voice of the shark in Finding Nemo?
I don't know, but that's who you sound like. I don't think it was him, but that's...
No, I don't think so
You were
either.
doing a perfect Bruce impersonation.
Oh my god. Let's see. Bruce Finding Nemo. No, that was Barry Humphries.
Oh, okay. My bad. Or actually, really, your bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jason Statham is on the dome.
Yeah.
Because we went to the movies.
Yeah.
And we got to watch the previews.
Yep. Well, this started before that for me. I decided to stay up late because I wanted to play a game. And while I was playing the game... You know who I am? I'm Jigsaw. You want to play a game?
You want to play a game?
Okay.
I'm Bruce from Finding Nemo.
Oh, no. Isn't it? I'm Bruce, isn't it, Governor?
Arnar, I'm Bruce from Finding Nemo.
This is fucking chaos. No, I wanted to play a game, so I decided to stay up late, and I wanted to put on a movie to help, fill the space. And so I pulled up, I think it was like HBO on my computer, and I was just scrolling, and it was like, you might be interested in this. And I was like, oh, I think I am. And what I was interested in was a movie called The Mechanic 2. Ooh. Which I've not seen the first one of. The Mechanic. Which is, both are Jason Statham numbers. Uh-huh. And he's numbers? He's my joints, whatever you want to.
Numbers, isn't it?
It's a Jason Statham picture love. And he's kind of like a guilty pleasure.
It's not even guilty.
No, it's not. It's unabashed. I'll watch anything.
You would yell out a car window, "I love Jason Statham!" and not even feel embarrassed.
But so I put that on and watched it, and it was bad.
Yeah.
He plays a hitman and
called the Mechanic.
Yeah, I
That's
guess.
like his code name.
I guess. I actually don't. I was only like half paying attention to it.
Okay, great. So the movie was bad, even though you didn't watch it.
The parts that I saw didn't make up for. And Jessica Alba's in it, and
nice.
Yeah.
Where is she these days?
I don't know. She was on a yacht, having been kidnapped in this movie.
Oh,
so
that sounds like something that would happen.
She was in the middle of a domestic violence thing when we first meet her. Jason Statham shows up, kills her boyfriend or something. I don't know.
Oof.
Yeah. And then she immediately gets kidnapped right after that, which is not how I thought they were going to go. I really thought they were going to go like, oh, this is going to be a team up and Jessica Alba is going to be like a cool girl hitman, hit woman.
Hit girl.
Yeah, hit girl. No, that's what the guy was doing on the boat. But
like how they have the lady postman.
Yeah. Post girl.
Yeah.
No, that's not what it was. She gets kidnapped almost immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's forced to like go kill some people to save her or whatever. And so, it's your standard. He's just beating guys up.
It's the plot of every Jason
He gets hit
Statham
like
movie.
3 times in the entire movie because I think like contractually that's all he's allowed to be punched in the film.
He's like, even if I get punched, I have to bounce back.
But so then we decided to go watch the movie that we watched for this episode, Hard Eyes. Mm-hmm. And we got to watch the previews, and it was like total silence, darkness, and then they just like an image of Jason Statham flashes on the screen.
With like some intense like boom, boom,
And my neck almost snapped from the speed of intensity of me whipping over to look at you.
We made intense eye contact instantly.
And I was like, I didn't see any other part of it yet. And I said, well, I have to see this.
Yes. And as we're watching it, you're like trying to guess what the name of it's gonna be, because it's always like the mechanic, the beekeeper, the Meg.
Yeah, the Meg. Crank to high voltage.
The crank.
Cranking it. Cranking it too.
Oh no.
Oh no.
He's cranking it.
Isn't it love?
Cranking it. But anyway.
That's a favorite of my Jason Statham series.
One of the best.
Is the Cranking It series. It's really underrated.
Oh, cranky, I cranked it again.
That's the fourth one.
The best one.
Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, so I'm sitting there the whole time and I'm like the contractor.
Yes.
Because he's like, for half of this,
he's on like a construction site.
Yeah, and I was like the
carpenter.
Yeah, because it's always like some profession or whatever that is innocuous in its name. And then we get to the entire ending of it, and it's going to be just a Jason Statham beating people up movie or whatever. Oh, The Transporter. Those were fun movies. He drives a car and beats people up in that one. But this one, as we get to the end of it, and it's called A Working Man.
A Working Man.
So he's not even like a profession anymore. No, he's just a guy.
He's a man with a job. And I feel like that's so accurate with the speed at which Jason Statham is putting out picture after picture.
But it's truly the epitome of like he's the same guy in every one of these movies.
Yes.
Because like in the trailer, he like beats up a dude for like being mean to one of like this woman that's on the construction site or something or whatever, and she's like, did I just see you do some military stuff? And he's like, you didn't see anything. And like that's literally the plot of every one of these, is he's just like he wants to be a normal guy, but he has some like elite military training background, and he gets I'm too old for this shit, and he gets pulled back in.
I feel like Jason Statham, he must have a hole deep inside him that he wishes had been filled with military or actually being a hitman IRL.
Slander.
Because he does always play the exact same character.
What it is as there comes a time in every growing boy's life where you become obsessed with being an action hero in the movies. And he never grew out of that. And then he got into a profession that allowed him to just do that.
He's a small boy.
Why play anything else?
Budget.
Yeah. Why play anything else when he can just be what he wanted to be as a kid every single day?
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I forget when it's supposed to come out. Doesn't matter. I'm going to see it. I will say, may not see it in theaters.
I mean, you're welcome to go to theaters anytime you want. Yeah. I'm not going to go see it.
Because I didn't see The Beekeeper in theaters. I waited till it came to streaming, and then I watched it in the privacy of my own home.
Yes.
As
God intended.
With the shades pulled, so.
So it is a guilty pleasure.
Yeah. I don't want anybody else to know I'm watching that. This slop.
To be fair, you watch a lot of slop. I also find it funny how much you genuinely love Jason Statham, but then you're also like, these movies are bad.
They are. They're I mean, some of them get better because like the fight choreography gets better, especially as time goes on. I haven't watched The Transporter or Transporter 2 or Transporter 3 in a really, really long time.
Or Transporter.
Are you trying to make a fart joke?
No, like the number 4. You only went up to 3.
Oh, I see.
Transporter.
Oh, I see. I thought you were trying to make a fart joke.
No,
you didn't mispronounce fart.
The Transporter.
Transporter. That's a different movie, I think. Do you know who I am?
I'm the Transporter.
Why did he turn into like posh?
Don't know.
Like Daniel Craig.
I cannot do Australian. I can do some accents.
He's not even Australian.
He was doing Australian earlier. No, he isn't. Is he?
Yes.
What in God's name? Okay, I can't do whatever his accent is. Whatever region.
His accent is Jason Statham. All right, put some respect on it.
So he's not Australian. I think he was Australian. Anyway, as you were saying.
I don't even know what I was saying. Oh, no. I haven't seen the Transporter movies in a really long time, but I feel like if I went back now and watched them, I'd be like, these are kind of rough. Yeah. I do remember there distinctly being two, I don't know if it's in the same movie, but there's two different like fight choreography scenes in the Transporter movies that were really good. One was in a hallway and it's like very close. Yeah. And he's like going back and forth with guys all over him. Hot. Yeah. Yeah. And the other one is this oil slick that he's like in the middle of. He like makeshifts these like metal almost like skates so that he's not like just barefoot in the oil. So he has like better traction, and there's, you know, like 11 million dudes trying to
but they're all slick slopping around.
Yeah, and they can't do it. And I think he also, and this may also be another sequence in there. So maybe they do hold up. I need to go back and watch these.
Yeah, maybe.
When we get done with this episode, we're going to go watch.
You'll go watch those? Yeah, that sounds good.
You and me are going to watch all three of them.
You'll go watch all three of them. That'd be good.
You're going to sit on the couch, and I'm going to put them on, and then you'll fall asleep 15 minutes into the first one. And then when it ends, I'll talk at you about how good it was.
Exactly.
Anyway.
I'm going to be on my phone looking at house blueprints of houses I'll never be able to afford to build.
But there's a sequence in there where he uses like a fire hose to beat up a bunch of people too.
Hell yeah.
Pretty cool.
Honestly, the more you describe it, it's kind of giving gay porn.
A little bit.
He's got a bunch of dudes on him on the hallway.
If I remember correctly, the oil slick scene, I think he is shirtless.
Of course he is.
Yeah.
He's gotta be.
Yeah.
Action films are low-key kind of homoerotic, and I love that.
It's big society. Hunky dudes beating each other up.
Beating each other up.
Beating each other up. So, you know. Yep. They're pretty good.
Yep.
Anyway.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So we went to the theater.
Yeah.
And we saw Hard Eyes.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually really excited to see Hard Eyes.
Me too.
Because we like the director. It's directed by Josh Rubin.
Yeah, which, if you don't know the name, I think a lot of people who do listen to us might recognize him from Dropout.
Yeah, he's a regular fixture in like Dropout, and or you might better know it as like College Humor kind of stuff.
Which I think I think one of the reasons this was really cool and why I was really excited for it is because I know Josh Rubin primarily through comedy things, and this being the second movie that we've seen from him that has
and his third overall, because he also did Werewolves Within.
Oh yeah, I haven't seen that, but that he did this, and he's leaning into this horror element. Yeah, I think is like really cool.
I love it. So I was psyched for him.
Yeah.
And, you know, we both went into it totally blind. Like, all I knew was that it's called Hard Eyes and that it is a Valentine's Day themed slasher.
Yeah.
But I didn't really know anything else about the concept or, you know, who he targets or, you know, whatever. So we went into it completely blind. And I guess spoiler for the end, we enjoyed ourselves.
Yeah. It was a really fun time. I think it's billed as, at least if you just like Google search it, it pops up as a horror romance movie.
Yeah.
But it is definitely a horror / romance / comedy.
Yeah. The most accurate description I found, I was looking at the Wikipedia earlier to get the cast list, and they bill it on Wikipedia as a romantic comedy slasher, which I think is a pretty
That's probably the most accurate
explanation.
Description of it. I think that this movie kind of threads that needle about as like good as you could really expect.
Yeah, it's not always easy to meld genres, especially when you get into, you know, 3 or more. But I think the comedy is kind of this common thread between both horror and romance. And so there was a lot of good there that I really enjoyed. I thought it was a successful merging of the genres. But yeah, we saw Hard Eyes just in time for Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day to our people listening.
Happy Valentine's Day to you.
Happy Valentine's Day to you.
No, you.
No, you.
You say as you're wearing this little Cupid.
Yeah, I have
Cupid babies.
I have little Cupid babies on my top, and they're throwing their little heart arrows. I'm in the spirit.
They're shooting them. They're not
just yeeting them. Yeah, you're right. They are shooting them with a bow.
Insane way to go about.
God. Hard Eyes did that a couple times.
Actually, no, that's true.
Hard Eyes threw an arrow multiple times.
Arrows Is it, people?
Yeah, so I'll give y'all the spiel because I know this is a new one. 2025 romantic comedy slasher film directed by Josh Rubin, as we said, and it was written by Philip Murphy, Christopher Landon, and Michael Kennedy. For the cast list of this movie, we have Olivia Holt as Allie, Mason Gooding as Jay Simmons, Gigi Zimbardo as Monica, Michaela Watkins as Crystal, Devin Sawa as Detective Hobbs, and Jordana Brewster as Detective Jeanette Shaw. Some names that, might stick out to you. Devin Sawa is, he was the lead in Final Destination, the first one, well, a few of them.
Yeah.
And so he's, horror fixture. And then also Jordana Brewster was in The Faculty. She's been in other things too, but that in terms of horror, that's what I always, connect her with. So we had some like late 90s, early 2000s folks coming back up with upcoming horror actors. A good mesh of new and old talent, or new and familiar, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, the concept behind this film is that a masked maniac with glowing red eyes returns every Valentine's Day across the country to terrorize unsuspecting couples. It's kind of revealed early on. We open up on a kill, and then we get the background through a series of news reports that this has been happening the past couple years. It's always in like a different city, but Heart Eyes will target an area and will go on this spree killing happy couples. And so everybody's kind of on edge on Valentine's Day as it's coming around again, worried about, some people think it's, stupid, it's a hoax, whatever. And some people are worried about it. That's kind of our backdrop to this whole story.
Yeah. This movie kind of, so like we talked about how it's like, I think at least, really successful in threading that like horror / romance / comedy kind of needle and everything. And I think like right from the start of this movie, it starts doing this like, I didn't really realize it was doing it until it wasn't halfway through the movie. It was like just before halfway through the movie. The kind of pattern they were kind of keeping with it, where it starts out and it feels very romance because we're opening on this like beautiful scene and this guy is proposing to his girlfriend.
Yep.
And then
looks like a great moment.
Yeah. And then we cut through that romance thing with a very funny moment. So now it's a rom-com. And then that goes from that into a horror thing, which, so now we've gone from romance to comedy to horror. And then while we're in the horror space, now we're playing with comedy again. Yeah. And then we come
back into the romance.
We come back out of that into another romance thing. And it kind of keeps doing this like cycle of like going from one thing into the other. And so you never feel like it's like the comedy's really out of place or the horror's really out of place or the romance is really out of place. They all kind of like tie together in ways that like actually makes sense.
Completely agree. Yeah, I think it was a well-oiled machine, and it kind of had this relationship of letting each of those subgenres like have their moment to shine, but also always keeping all three of them kind of in the picture, because even in some of the more like tender or romantic moments, you still have that underlying feeling of like, oh, but this is dire, and like there's stuff going on and you were just being chased. And, so even though they do have this repeating pattern, there's also a beautiful melding of all of them present at all times. So you don't get that whiplash that I think can sometimes happen in these kind of mixed genre movies.
Yeah, because sometimes it can be a little jarring to go from like these moments that are supposed to be like these heartfelt things to like these like uproariously funny,
or slapstick,
like
all
straight
of a sudden.
into like from a romantic thing into like a really horrifying kind of a thing. It does a really good job of like jumping between those things and never really feeling like it's out of place. Yeah. It's also really gross.
I was going to say, this movie is very gory.
Yeah, if you are not into blood or gore, like, do not watch this, or you got to watch it, like, with the blinkers ready, because, like...
Right.
Oh, man.
And I will say, if it helps at all for folks who are on the fence about it, it's the kind of gore that becomes, like, so over the top that, at least for me, it kind of loops back around to just being, like, almost ridiculous or cartoonish, because it's so crazy. That said, though, it is pretty graphic. Like, we are seeing, like, there's going to be an eyeball popping out. There's going to be sinews and tendons and all sorts of gross stuff. So,
oh my God. The opening kills in this movie are disgusting.
Disgusting, yes. And one thing I think is so fun about the Hard Eyes Killer, if you haven't seen any of the media yet or you haven't watched the movie for it, Hard Eyes is very much like the Valentine's Day theme, and the love theme is really baked into all of the character design. Yes. So there's like this cool mask that almost kind of gives the effect of like one of those like stitched up like what do you call those, like flour sacks or whatever.
Yeah, kind of like from the Strangers, the sackhead guy,
of
but
like that.
Way more tight fitting and leathery instead of a burlap sack.
And instead of, just regular holes for the eyes, they have these heart cutout shapes that have like a red, he
can turn them on to make them glow
like
red.
Night vision
it's sick
stuff.
as hell. Like, there's like no reason for it, but it's so cool.
It's way over the top. The Hard Eyes Killer uses a lot of different weapons throughout the film. So like we said, like there's an arrow that, is repeated multiple times. Sometimes it's being thrown, but he also has like a hand crossbow. Yeah. So can have more force. And of course the arrow's got a little heart on it, and, has like the little knives that have the heart cut out on the handle. And it's all very kitschy and love and Cupid's arrow. You know?
It's kind of silly because like there's no reason for this like brutal murder to do all of that.
Yes. But then you've still got like the big boots and the black trench
just
coat
like the paramilitary almost looking outfit on and everything.
But then the cutesy little accessories.
Yeah, it's so funny. There's right at the top of this movie. I don't want to spoil most of the kills because it is like brand new. I mean, I guess we can. Yeah. We can like kind of put like a spoiler kind of mark in here. Like let's give like a overall thumbs up, thumbs down in case people want to see it and then come back.
I would give it a thumbs up. I think it's a good movie.
Yeah. I think
it's worth seeing.
If you like slashers, if you're looking for like a fun Valentine's Day themed horror movie, definitely go see this. Mm-hmm. I would say if you're not a fan of like blood and gore, either skip this one
or maybe wait
or you can watch it with peek through the
or
peek through
listen
the
to the rest of this episode so that way you can listen exactly to this one. What's going to happen.
And then you'll know, and then we can discuss
well, and also I just want to say one quick thing in case people tune out. Also watch this movie because we should be supporting innovative horror. It has
absolutely
like new ideas and that's being done by people that actually like care and have something to say. This is not a Blumhouse feature.
In a world of shitty Blumhouse movies that get churned out,
like this.
You gotta support this kind of stuff because this is actually inventive and fun to watch.
Yes. Anyway, get the hell out of here.
Hannah, get out of here.
Get out,
you scamp. Anyway, so now we can go into kind of the spoiler thing.
Yes.
Because I want to talk about some of these kills because they're fucking disgusting and I love them.
And there's one in particular I want to talk about too.
Okay.
So.
I think I know which one, so I'll leave it for you to talk about. The one I want to talk about right up at the front is not the very first kill, it's the second kill in the movie. The first kill in the movie he kills, there's a camera guy that's like taking photos and they do this really fun thing of where you kind of think the guy who's taking the photos is the killer.
Right, because we see it through the like lens or whatever.
Yeah. And then we get the reveal that the guy's like paid for this proposal, photographer and everything. And the guy goes ready to take a photo and then the Hard Eyes Killer pops out and stabs through the fucking camera lens all the way through and kills the guy. But the second kill is one of the really gross ones because that first kill is not all that gross. It's surprising.
It is surprising.
It does kind of come out of nowhere and you're like, whoa. But the second one, the guy is like facing away from her. She's grabbed the phone from him and has called the camera guy to see if he can get the shot or whatever. They don't know he's dead. Mm-hmm. And then you hear something hit the guy who just did the proposal. The squelch of, him getting hit with something. And then she's like, babe. And like she turns back around and the camera shows him and he turns around and he's got the arrow sticking through his head. Yep. And his eyes do this thing where like one of them starts to get like real droopy and like lazy in there,
and like sort of rolls
and just kind of rolls like he's just gone, and then he just like falls, and I was like, oh my god, that's disgusting. It's such a small little detail.
I will say they do a lot of eye stuff in this movie.
Actually do a lot of eye.
Not necessarily a lot of stuff like directly happening to eyes, but seeing eyes like in the death, like in
like reactions to like having died,
right? and even down to like the other, you know, the girlfriend portion of the proposal. She gets chased around this beautiful vineyard by Hard Eyes, but in her kill, she gets like squished to death by some industrial equipment. But even with that, the squishing is what's killing her. But there's still like a focus on her eye, where like one of her eyes like pops out of her head before the rest of her gets squished. Oh, God. So there's a lot of stuff like that. And this is why we say, like, to me, it comes around to being cartoonish. But I know that I also am kind of desensitized. Yeah. So proceed with your comfort level.
We got through the opening kills in this movie, which I think it totals to 4 for the opening kills, because he kills the camera guy, the guy doing the proposal, the security guard, and the security guard. Yeah. Which is where we get the little detail that there's like hearts carved into the shit, because he like throws a knife and kills him with that, and then we get this
picks
shot.
Picks it back up to use it again.
Stupid. Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, like we got through that last kill where he crushes her in the wine, the grape squishing thing or whatever. Yeah,
whatever that is.
The juicer. And she like explodes inside the thing, and then it like starts spinning, and like you see like what's supposed to be like juice or wine coming out of the thing, and it's clear at first, and then it turns red. Like it's all really well done, and the whole time I'm like, oh, this is so gross, but like gross. I can't look away. It's so good.
Yeah.
But then we go from that into like what would be the opening of like a rom-com thing. I guess right after that we get like a news report thing, kind of explaining who the Hard Eyes killer is, you know, to the best of the media's knowledge or whatever, but we go from that to like a rom-com thing.
Yeah, we get a full-on meet cute of like a girl at a coffee shop who like goes to pick up her order, but then a guy goes to reach for the same cup, and they realize, oh my god, we have the same super niche coffee order. Like we're meant to be together.
But then they make fun of it, because like they're like, there's no way somebody else would order the exact thing or whatever, and then like the barista guy is like, actually it's a super common order, can you guys please move?
Yeah, we're so busy right now, we're slammed. And even down to like they have another cute little moment where they're both, you know, getting their little coffee stirs and kind of chit-chatting, and you know, she drops something and they both lean down to get it, but they bonk heads, and it's like, normally that's such a like romantic comedy trope, but because it's in a horror movie, they do it in a way where it's not just like a little cutesy bump. She like, in one of them, she full on makes his nose bleed because she essentially headbutts him. And so it's like, again, that's kind of what I mean of like, they're incorporating the romantic comedy tropes, but then amping it up and adding like the blood and the more visceral reaction, because it is still horror. And all of this is so seamlessly integrated into one moment.
And then shortly after this, we get introduced to our like detectives that are on the case.
We have kind of like a subplot of the two detectives.
And this is one of the things, so when I was looking up the movie just before we went into it, because I wanted to be like, did they build this as like a horror comedy, or like what, you know, what about it? But I didn't want to get too much information, because I also was like, this is going to be like a whodunit kind of a thing,
accidentally
and so I don't want to spoil it. And so I saw the actors playing the detectives, and I saw that their names were Detective Shaw and Detective Hobbs, and that's like the movie Hobbs and Shaw, but I was like, it's probably just a coincidence. And then in the movie,
they make a certain
point, they introduce themselves, and they're like, you mean like the movie? And they're like, never heard of it.
Yeah, don't know what you're talking about.
And I was like, all right.
just stupid things like that.
Incredibly dumb stuff.
But the detectives are Devon Sawa and Jordana Brewster, which I also thought was kind of fun, because I just loved the juxtaposition of like these people who were horror heartthrobs in their youth, like coming in, and now they're playing like the detectives. Like there was something kind of fun and cheeky about their casting.
It's kind of like graduating to like the next level of it, you know? But yeah, it was really fun.
Do you love Halloween? Have you ever wished there was another time to celebrate that fun and spooky time of year?
Well, now you can. Hauntfest is a Halloween horror festival business that celebrates Halloween off-season.
Their next ghoulish affairs will be at Nightmare Dungeon in Greenville, South Carolina on December 13th through 15th, and at Terrapin Beer Company in Athens, Georgia on April 4th through 6th.
Hauntfest events include all sorts of themed activities, such as hay rides, freak shows, fire breathing, live music, trivia, pumpkin painting, animal encounters, a haunted trail, and much more.
The festival also hosts an array of horror and Halloween-themed vendors, offering anything from tarot readings and antiques to original horror literature, macabre artwork, and jewelry.
Don't miss out on this opportunity. Get your pre-sale tickets today for only $20.
For ticket purchases, inquiries, and more info, please visit www.hauntfest.net and follow Hauntfest on social media.
So, the next portion of this movie is basically just romantic comedy.
Yeah, we get kind of a period that's basically just romantic comedy without, getting into all of it because I want to leave, some details. But we get more background on our main character, Allie, who she has this ex-boyfriend that she's stalking on Instagram, and she doesn't have plans for Valentine's Day. Yep. And she's one of those cynics that doesn't think love is real, but simultaneously she works doing marketing for a jewelry company that's all about proposals and romance and, all this stuff.
And then
it's the perfect romantic comedy.
And then in true romantic comedy fashion, they're all being called in for this big meeting about her what is it called? Not proposal.
Her
ad campaign.
Yeah.
And
it's like a doomed lovers thing.
Yeah, and this happens right when the news breaks about the latest Hard Eyes killings, and so they're all like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah, everybody's like, "Oh, this is so insensitive," even though it was done, before.
But in true rom-com fashion, we learn that the guy that she meets at the coffee shop and runs out on because she embarrassed the shit out of herself by headbutting him and making him bleed and everything.
Right.
He's been called in to salvage the campaign for them. And so again, we're not even doing horror really at this point. We've just fully got into a romantic comedy thing. And it's so expertly done because this whole segment is a fairly decent chunk of this movie where there's not horror stuff really going on.
Not really.
We get a couple of scenes where we cut to the detectives investigating the original murders that we see take place at the beginning. And other than that, we don't really get any horror elements. Mm-hmm. There's, I think, another scene you can tell that they're being watched by the Hard Eyes killer at one point. Other than those two little things, it's kind of just straight romantic comedy.
It's going in this direction of basically they clearly have some kind of mutual attraction for each other, but because she again is that cynic, and also they have sort of been placed in kind of an adversarial position where he's coming in to fix her mistake at the company, so she feels like her job is threatened and everything.
Yeah.
So they're attracted to each other, but they're also not doing anything about that. And they're kind of even butting heads a little bit, which again is very classic rom-com. Yeah. But it leads to the whole concept of this movie that is so funny and so perfect, which is that Hard Eyes mistakes them for a couple because they're out at a romantic dinner on Valentine's Day, even though it was just a work thing.
Yeah.
And also she saw her ex-boyfriend there, and in order to not look pathetic, kissed him.
Yeah.
Kissed Jay Simmons so that she could pretend it was her boyfriend.
Yeah.
And so even though they're not together, they then proceed to get hunted by Hard Eyes the whole night.
Yes.
And it leads to so many funny ongoing bits where they will literally be yelling at Hard Eyes we're not even a couple.
Yeah.
And it's
kill someone else.
It's so funny. It made me laugh every single time because it was just truly that thing of wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah.
All of that.
Yeah. And the whole sequence of the romantic comedy part before we get to when Hard Eyes is coming after them, it's so disarming.
Yes.
Because I think they did this whole thing. There's like a sequence where like she gets dropped off after she kisses him at her place, and then she's like lost her keys, so she can't get into her apartment or whatever. And it's one of those ones that has like the lobby, and you have to go in there, and then you can go up in
so she's able to get into her apartment, but she can't get through the front door.
The front door, yeah. And so they decide they're going to break the glass on the front door thing to get in, and so she's going to do it, but then she's going to do it bad or whatever, so he decides to do it, and he does it in honestly an equally stupid fashion, but he cuts his hand on the glass, and this is the device to get them up into the apartment,
right?
Which again, all of this is just like textbook romantic comedy. They weren't even planning on like doing all of this.
It's building on Heart Eyes thinking they're a couple that like, oh, now they're taking it upstairs, and
but they get up in there, and there's this like whole sequence where she's like picking the glass out of his hand, and like it's that like tender thing, and he like moves the hair behind her ear and everything like that, and then we get this stupid bit where she realizes, because like in her bedroom, because she wasn't expecting to have anyone over, there's a vibrator just on the nightstand, and he hasn't seen it, or at least she doesn't think he's seen it, and so she's going to move it, and when she grabs it, and again we're getting all this touching stuff, we find out that she was in medical school but she dropped out because she doesn't do well with blood, and her parents were this, that, the other, and you know, maybe this stuff about him and whatever, and then she opens the closet door to just like chuck it in there, and when she opens it, surprise, we're back into the horror thing, because it's just like the music cuts. We fully see Hard Eyes is just standing in her closet, and then he's like, what the fuck? And then she's like, ah, and she throws the vibrator. And then slams the closet door, and then he just like breaks the thing down, and like then it turns into this whole, you know, he's coming after them to kill them kind of thing.
And he's chasing them through the apartment down to outside. They run across the street into the abandoned, you know, the
botanical gardens or whatever.
Whatever, you know, silly thing. But yeah, it does really well at never making you like feel any tension in the transitions between, like, there's no friction in between those genres at all.
We get like abruptly pulled out of the romance thing. But and this is the thing though, is like it is this scary moment because she opens it and we realize, oh, that's Hard Eyes. They cut it with that little bit of comedy where she throws the vibrator. And then the horror starts, because then he starts trying to kill them. And so they're always breaking up the genres with that comedy bit in there to kind of like take you out of one and then get you into the other one. And then now we're in the horror thing, and there's some comedy stuff in there, and then we're going to bookend that with comedy and then into a romance thing. And we're going to have that moment, let it breathe for a little bit. Comedy, laugh. Hard Eye shows back up. We're trying not to get killed again. And it's like, it's that through the whole movie. And again, this movie is like an hour and a half long. It's not long.
I don't know exactly
I think it's
how
an
long
hour
it is,
37.
but it's not a long movie. And it doesn't feel long. I didn't feel that the runtime dragged at all. It's 97 minutes. So this is when it really becomes the like kind of ongoing cat and mouse thing that we're probably most familiar with like horror and Final Girls, you know. He's chasing them through the park, and at one point Jay gets knocked out because he gets pushed, and he does that thing where he lands on his back and his head like
hits the
sort
ground,
of rebounds, and so he really cracks himself and he kind of loses consciousness, and then Allie starts to run away like in another direction, and Hard Eyes proceeds, and all of this is in service of kind of the next phase, which is that they got separated, but right at the last second as Hard Eyes is approaching Allie, cops pull up and save the day. But what they say is, oh yeah, we caught Hard Eyes. It's Jay Simmons. A mask and a knife was right next to him, and he was with you. And she's like, no, we were being chased together. But they just kind of brush her off, and they're like, well, maybe he had a partner, maybe this or that. Then there's this tension of she knows that Hard Eyes is still genuinely out there, but the cops are not acting in such a way to protect her or to chase Hard Eyes because they think they have him in their interrogation room now.
So then we switch into this whole like sequence of like trying to question him.
Yes.
And it's a little over the top. And there's like some kind of silly stuff with the whole police station.
Yeah.
Like there's some goofy things that happen in there. The whole setting is a little weird because it's this police station and there's approximately 3 people in the entirety of the police station.
Empty, which they put in one line to address that, and they were just like, everyone's out celebrating that they caught Hard Eyes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wouldn't they all be here wanting to watch the interrogation?
Yeah, right? Like trying to nail this guy.
Yeah, so there's like nobody there.
There's literally no one there.
There's 2 detectives, there's a front desk person, and then we also have an IT guy who's like helping the front desk person with her computer issue, and he's like doesn't even really work for the department, but he's just kind of there for another bit. Just ridiculous.
No, it's very silly. We go from the whole police station scene, which has some funny stuff. I think it's the first time we get to see the cool red eyes light up on the mask.
Yeah, because the power goes out, and at first I was like, oh, this is actually great because they're on the same footing, but then
in the darkness you hear like the night vision goggle charge up sound, and then the eyes turn red and the heart shape, and you're like, oh no.
And we get some cool shots from Hard Eye's perspective where they put kind of the filter on it so that you see the like heart outline of the goggles and everything, which I loved. I thought that was super fun.
It's touches like that are a little like goofy and campy that I'm just like, I love that.
It's so Silence of the Lambs. Like there's that, like one of the most terrifying sequences in Silence of the Lambs is when Buffalo Bill has the night vision goggles and Clarice doesn't, and he's just watching her slowly creeping through the dark, grasping for anything because she's so terrified. And like they're referencing that, but they're doing it in their own way, and it's just it's really fun.
Also, right at the beginning of the movie when he's chasing the one woman through the vineyard, and it's she gets inside the warehouse or whatever, they do the same thing with like seeing through his eyes in the mask, and you can kind of see the heart thing. It's also very reminiscent of like the beginning of Halloween when you're looking through the eye holes in the mask,
and you can just hear the breathing.
Yeah, you just hear the breathing. So it's like it's little nods, like breaking through the closet door is very like Jason Voorhees.
Yeah, the way he just kind of muscles it.
Yeah, it just you know, and seems indestructible. Yes, and it's just totally. Like there's so many little nods to other things that like it feels like it really appreciates the other stuff in the horror genre.
Absolutely.
While also doing a lot of like kind of unique stuff. Yeah. There's a whole sequence where they're going through a drive-in movie for Valentine's Day trying to evade him, and they realize that in running away from him and coming here, they brought a killer whose like whole thing is about killing couples to a place where it is nothing but couples.
Yes, it's all couples on Valentine's Day trying to make out in their car. Yeah. And so they've basically brought a kid to a candy store. Yeah. You know?
And so they're trying to avoid him, and they get into this van, and there's like a really humorous scene in this van that they get into with a couple of like stoners in
who
there.
Clearly don't understand what's at stake.
Yeah, and Hard Eyes is like going to the crowd, and you know, people like, because he's been in the news,
some people are reacting
they're like, oh, that's fucked up and that's not funny, but they don't actually think it's like him. And so he's kind of like moving through the crowd, and whenever he gets like close to somebody, he'll just like stab them and kill them.
He'll be like, he's mostly going for couples, but he will just kill anyone is in his way. He'll just kill them. But yeah, it's that whole, not quite that scene, but the van and everything. So Hard Eyes is in the police station, and there's like a whole chase, but eventually Allie is able to escape and help Jay get out too. And so that's when they, you know, are out on the run, and the cops are kind of missing in action. We do see Devon Sawa die, and then Jordana Brewster, it gets like cornered, but we don't see what happens to her. Yeah. But I loved the scene in the van. I thought it was the perfect melding.
It was literally like everything. The epitome of like romance, comedy, horror. Like just like all back to back to back.
So they're hiding in the front seat, and they're all kind of, you know, scooched down in the seats, and they're terrified.
Yeah. And he like walks by, but he doesn't see him in there. And
you have the whole scene of like trying to hold your breath because you don't even want him to know you're there. But then after he passes, they kind of both start getting into this deep, heartfelt conversation about really their feelings for one another, and also like their own issues with love. Like each of them kind of tells their story about how they grew up, and like what their examples were with love were like, and why it's been hard for them to find the right person. And so it's like this touching, intimate moment, all the while, the stoner couple is in the back of the van actively having sex.
Yep.
And so you're hearing like the moaning and the squeaking, and like sometimes they'll like moan things that are a response to like a question or something that one of our main actors has said, which was so fucking funny. But all of this culminates when
they start getting too loud.
They get too loud, and then Hard Eyes like rips open the back door and kills them in the craziest way. He has a tire iron.
Insane.
He runs it through the guy's mouth he was on laying the bottom, down, so he's laying down flat. And then the girlfriend was on top of him, so after he stabs it into that guy's head, he then grabs her head and slams it down as if she's gonna kiss him, but there's the tire iron there. Yeah. So like he basically does the same thing to her.
Yep.
And it's just so gross and brutal.
Yeah, because she lifts her back up off of it, and then the camera shot is through the hole that has been punched all the way through
head.
And you see the two main characters in the front of the van.
Like, oh fuck.
Yeah. It's so gross.
And again, like, it's just the perfect example of, like, it hits everything. Yeah. It has the romance, it has the comedy, it has the horror, it has the gross factor, it has the fear factor. It's just so perfect. And to me, one of my favorite moments in the whole movie is the kind of the conclusion of that drive-in theater scene where Allie and Jay decide, no, we've got to stand up to Hard Eyes. Like, we're just going to keep being chased if we don't do this. So they decide to fight back. Mm-hmm. And they go to the van and they're like, we're in this together.
It's so dumb.
And they each put one hand on the tire iron that is still actively
like shoved into the guy.
That guy's head.
Yeah.
And they sort of have this like close moment of like tenderly looking at each other.
Yeah, because she's like, I can't do this. And he's like, yes, you can. Yeah. And then they both put their hands
and then they pull it out together to use as a weapon.
And they're playing like romantic music.
It was genius. It was literally
the shot from above where you could see the guy's eyes just open with a tire iron and a little bit of like guts or whatever in the top of the little tire iron bit or whatever. It's so gross.
And it's
so funny.
Loved it.
Yeah, it's very good. Let's
But yeah, just to kind of wrap up with that, we get the whole sort of double twist of they think that they kill Hard Eyes and then oopsie, Hard Eyes is back.
Yeah.
And so they have one more final standoff.
Yeah, there's a big final standoff.
And I don't want to spoil it.
Yeah, no.
It's new.
Yeah, it is new. And like, I know we're in the spoilery portion of this, but I will say they do leave clues throughout the movie so you can figure out who it is.
I had about 50% of the twist figured out, but it still got me too.
Yes.
And so I liked that.
It is a fun twist. It is silly.
Yeah.
When we get to it, and the killers do their whole, killer monologue and they explain why they're doing this. It's silly and a little dumb.
Definitely.
But it's fine. I think we should go ahead and give it a rating.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And then we can talk about like our scariest moments.
Sure. So I think we both gave it a pretty high score. We were pretty close.
Yeah.
I gave it my score ended up just being a straight across 8.
Yeah, mine was a 8.2.
So we landed on an 8.1 together, which I think is deserved.
Yeah. It's a really fun, inventive slasher movie. It's also something, we talked about this on the drive home from seeing it, that like a long time ago before we had actually started doing this show, we talked about like if we could make our own horror movies, what would we want to make? And we had actually talked about like, there's a weird space where there's like not like really any Valentine's Day
there's
themed,
only My Bloody Valentine
horror movies, and so we kind of were trying to like figure out like what would we do.
And
while like obviously we didn't come up with this,
no, our concept was totally different.
It was interesting because there were like bits of what we talked about we want to see in the movie in this, and I felt like really cool and kind of validated.
Me
being
too.
Like, okay,
I have good ideas.
Hey,
what?
Watch out, Hollywood, we're coming.
We're coming for you. Yeah, I love thematic horror. I love holiday horrors. I love that kind of stuff. And especially something like this that's just a true blue slasher.
Yeah.
I was truly delighted by this. I don't necessarily want to talk it up too much because I know it's not like, oh, this is going to be the greatest movie of all time,
Sure, no.
But I think to me it was such a treat because it was so successful and it was very different from the stuff that's been coming out.
Yes.
And I felt like it was one of the first more recent modern horror movies that made a memorable slasher that reminds me of the big slasher giants of the 80s. Like, Heart Eyes felt realized in their design, and the concept and everything felt very fully realized and fleshed out the way that like Michael Myers or Chucky or Freddy Krueger does. Yeah. And I think that's always been hard for people, more recent movies, to pull off because it's hard to stand up to those things. And I think this legitimately does. So I think I thought it was really good. Yeah, no,
I greatly enjoyed this movie. There were several points throughout the movie that you and I were laughing out loud. Like fully laughing at moments that were supposed to be funny.
Yep.
There were some truly disgusting effects in this, a fair bit of practical effects from my understanding, and you know, they use CGI to enhance some of it, but like it all looks really good. There's some good jump scares in it that actually got me, and I don't get affected by jump scares nearly as much as you.
But it also didn't overly
rely no, it doesn't. It doesn't overly rely on them. That one that I was kind of talking about where she throws the vibrator into the closet is kind of a jump scare, but like not really. He doesn't like pop out at you.
She just there.
Opens it and you're like, oh, that's him.
Yeah. You're like,
but no, it's really good. Do you have like a scariest moment?
I think to me, probably the scariest moment, because the scariest to me isn't always necessarily the goriest.
Yeah.
But I think to me the scariest moment was probably when Allie's being chased early on in the movie, and she's at the like carousel.
Yeah.
I thought that was really fucking creepy because there was this whole beautiful moment where she's like hiding on the carousel and there's a swing set because the whole thing's like a playground area. And she saw Heart Eyes like swinging on the swing set as she like peeks around a little corner, which is already horrifying because you're like, this guy's a fucking sociopath.
Yeah.
And then she sort of like hides away and she can still hear the swing going. And when she goes back to check in again, he's not there
empty.
anymore.
It's just swinging empty.
And it's like, ah! Yeah. But I thought that was a really effective like chase scene.
It was a good tense moment.
Yeah, they did the good like kind of cat and mouse of, oh, he's right there, but she's still like a competent final girl, so she's making more or less good decisions.
Yeah.
But also he's a competent killer.
Yeah.
So it felt like they were evenly matched, and they had this fun, tense thing. And I also I've had that situation that happened to Jay where you fall backwards and hit your head, and I had such a visceral reaction to seeing that because I was like, shit, I know what that feels like because of roller derby. Yeah. And it's so bad and it hurts so bad. Yeah. So yeah, I liked that.
For me, the scariest scene in the movie is kind of a hard one.
Yeah.
So the scariest, I agree, is not always like the goriest or bloodiest thing. A special mention to when the girl gets squished right at the beginning.
Yes.
Because it is
so gross.
It's very gross. Which, if you're like not a fan of blood, there's like one other scene in the movie that may actually be worse than that.
Yeah.
And it's not the tire iron scene.
Nope. Surprisingly.
But I don't want to spoil it. And so for me, it may be that scene that I don't want to spoil.
Yeah, there's the final showdown with Heart Eyes has some really intense gore.
Yeah,
and it's
pretty
it's
disgusting.
A lot. You'll know what we're talking about if you see it.
And that is like a scary scene just from the standpoint of like it's very bloody and gory.
Yes.
Which I do think there's like a place for that. But other than that, I actually think one of the scariest scenes is when Heart Eyes is just in the closet.
Yeah.
Because again, I think they spent 15-20 minutes of runtime of this movie just doing a romantic comedy, and so you kind of forget that you're in a horror movie, and you're kind of like, oh, because you get wrapped up in the whole thing with the vibrator, and you're like, oh man, he's either gonna see this and it's gonna be like another thing where they like butt heads on it, or she's gonna like, we're gonna see the antics of her trying to hide this from him or whatever, and you forget that it's a horror movie, and then she opens the door and he's there, and you're ripped back into it, and you're like, oh no. Yeah. So I think that's probably it. Was, if it's not the scariest scene in the movie, it certainly was probably like the most fun scene in the movie for me, just because of that like intense roller coaster of emotions that I was feeling. I
agree. That was really fun. And even like right after that scene, because they, leave her bedroom and they kind of are like both holding the doorknob to keep Hard Eyes inside. And they actually did something that I was like, I don't know that I necessarily would have thought to like do this, but she like takes his belt off and like wraps it around the handle and also like the radiator.
Ties it on the radiator,
to like keep it. And normally I would be like, oh, that's kind of smart because you can use that obstacle as like an opportunity to get a little bit of a head start. They didn't do that. Because they did the thing that they always do in horror movies where they're just like, whew, that was close. We
got him. You okay?
Yeah. But then that's interrupted when the fucking knife
comes through the door.
But I like stuff like that too, because you have that mixture of like making them believable characters in that they do make smart strategic decisions at times, but they're also in a stressful situation where like they have so much adrenaline that they're not always going to be perfect every time.
Well, I think a good example is like during that scene when they first being confronted by Hard Eyes. He comes out of the closet and tries to shoot her with like one of the crossbow things, and I think misses. Yeah. Because like Jay hits him or something like that. I think
Jay like lifts his hand.
And like causes him to miss. But instead of Allie just standing there and being like, "Oh, poor helpless me," we get a shot of her like as Hard Eyes is trying to deal with Jay, who is the bigger threat just in terms of Jay's physically. Jay's like a big dude. Yeah, he's like really muscular and everything, and so like he's dealing with that. Allie grabs a lamp off of her nightstand and smashes it on.
She did what I'm always yelling at people to do in horror movies, where I'm like, don't just stand there and watch them struggle on the ground.
There's so many times when they're both able to help each other out that they are trying to both actually fight him at the same time,
and it feels very satisfying and real.
And so then it feels like even. Like, it feels really bad when, like, Hard Eyes ends up getting the upper hand in whatever the scenario is.
Right, because you're like, oh, they tried so hard. Yeah.
Anyway.
This movie is hilarious. It is scary. It's gross. And it is romantic, I would say.
Yeah. It ends in a fun way.
Yeah, totally. There is, like, a little... Well, it's not really a post-credit scene.
It's a
mid-credit scene that was cute, too. And I overall... really loved this movie, and I hope to see more movies like this that get like wide releases. And also Mazel Tov to Josh Rubin, I guess.
Yeah,
like, good work.
This is a fun movie. So I really hope I was telling you about this, that like it's really fun and nice when like you're kind of rooting for somebody who like you don't know, like you just like you like them,
right? Like we don't know him personally.
And like I just wanted his project to succeed, and then it did. Like, or at least I really liked it, or whatever. And so it just like it feels really good when that. Yeah, it's that moment
of like, oh wow, like we've been with you since the beginning.
He did it. Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, because we watched another movie that he did. Scare Me, and
that I think was on Shudder.
Yeah, and it was interesting, and like what you and I think came to the conclusion of it was that like the best thing about it is that it was inventive and creative.
There were maybe some execution wise it was a issues, but really fun.
Yeah, and so like going from that to this movie, I think is really starting to illustrate that like Josh Rubin, who again I know for like comedy stuff, and I really like his sense of humor, and I mean that shines through in this movie as well. But he has an eye for the creativity of like horror stuff.
Yeah, you know, he's got at least 3 I can remember.
Yeah, and so it's just fun.
Yeah.
I would not be surprised if he's up and coming, like
yeah.
pretty big name in the horror scene.
I would hope that, you know, like the writers of this movie, I hope that they continue to do things too, because again, it just felt like a breath of fresh air. The last couple of years, like we've had some really high highs with horror, but we've also had a lot of really low lows.
I'm looking at you imaginary.
And yeah, and I think like it is kind of unfortunate, and it's not unique necessarily to horror, but really Hollywood in general is kind of in this moment of everything is a remake or a reboot or a requel, and it's really refreshing to have like a new thing that holds up. You know, it's not just like, because I don't feel like I'm being like, oh, pat on the head because at least it's new. It was legitimately good, and it was new.
Yeah, it was new and creative and inventive, and also it was really good just as a movie.
So, you know, it just like, to me, it really fired on all cylinders, and it makes me hopeful because I want things like this to succeed in the box office so that people get the message that, hey, we want more from our horror. Blumhouse was great for a minute because it really kind of like gave funding to
it
horror.
Opened the door for like horror to make a big comeback. Yeah,
be super mainstream.
But
now, I wouldn't be surprised. It honestly feels like most of their scripts these days are like AI assisted. And honestly, just fully calling out, if you wrote Night Swim or Imaginary or any of those, come at me. I'm pretty sure you used AI. Okay. Because there's an element of it that all of it feels
it feels extremely soulless. Like it's not, you know, whatever. Like the humor in it is shit. The concept of it is like half baked.
Yes,
you know, whatever.
Doesn't even make
sense.
There was
a trailer. I don't even remember what it was for in the lead up to Hard Eyes that we were watching, and I don't remember what it was, and I was like, that looks like it's going to be trash. And then the last little like card thing I saw on the little very bottom thing, I saw the BH and the little house thing, and I'm like, oh, it's a Blumhouse movie. Yeah, it's going to suck ass.
No wonder.
Because like they do.
You can just spot them. They're all the same. So yeah, it's nice to get something new.
I think the only real like recent one is Megan from Blumhouse. I think is a Blumhouse picture.
I'm pretty sure that's a Blumhouse movie.
That's like the only one
that's been kind of successful.
Yeah, and they're doing a new one this year, Megan 2.0 or whatever. So we'll see.
And Megan was fun because they leaned.
Yes, it was very campy, and you know it was like a fully thought out concept. You know,
all of that to say, in conclusion, Blumhouse, eat my nuts.
Take a long walk off a short pier.
Yep. Do you have anything else you wanted to say?
No, I don't think so.
All right. Well, again, happy Valentine's Day to you, and please don't kill or be killed by someone on Valentine's Day. That would suck. Maybe don't go to dinner, because then that won't happen. Also, if you want to connect with us, send us your suggestions, your feedback, whatever is on your mind about horror, feel free to connect with us. We're on social media. It's at First Fright Pod on Instagram and X. We also have an email account, firstfrightpod@gmail.com, as well as a Facebook page. It's Love at First Fright. Feel free to reach out to us. We love to hear from you guys.
Yeah. I think that'll do it. If you have the chance, we're releasing this we saw it Thursday night.
We saw it overnight
for this movie, and so this episode, As the Crow Flies, is coming out the Monday after its opening weekend. And so, if you're listening to this when this episode releases, go see this movie in theaters. It's a fun time.
Yeah.
And if you can't, whatever, then see it when it comes to streaming.
Yeah,
It's a fun movie.
I think it's worthy of support.
One of the more fun horror slasher movie things I've seen recently. So.
Oh, totally.
Plus, if you see it in theaters, you probably get to see that cool Jason Statham trailer.
And that's important.
You know who I am. I'm the guy in the trailer before the movie you're watching.
Isn't it?
Isn't it, governor? Hello, love. Chip, cheerio. And he punches a guy.
What if Jason Statham was going to be in a Blumhouse picture? What would it be about?
That's a good question.
I think it would maybe be like a Groundhog's Day kind of thing where
he fights a groundhog.
No, I was thinking more like his wife and child get like kidnapped or something, and he has to go back and redo it to save them. He's got to be strong enough.
He's got to And by strong enough, you mean he's got to beat up a bunch of people.
Yeah. But
that sounds like too much thinking.
Yeah, it might not be good.
I think it's going to be a ghost picture, and he like fist fights a ghost.
That would be actually. I might tune in for that.
Yeah, you would. It would be sick.
If Blumhouse wants to work with Jason Statham, maybe give us a cut.
Blumhouse, Jason Statham, The Ghost Adventures crew. One movie. Pay-per-view.
Yes. And yes, there is full frontal nudity in it. Who's
not from who you're expecting.
Yeah, it's not for me to say. You have to tune in. Yeah, so anyway, that's what we bring to the table.
That movie would be Zach Bagans figures out how to turn someone into a ghost. And the only person they can justifiably do it to is Jason Statham, because he has to be a strong ghost so he can go fight the other ghosts.
Right, and then Jason Statham is like...
to save his wife and kids that have been kidnapped.
Yes.
By the ghosts.
Right.
Or demons or something.
And he's like preventing... like there's like a mean ghost that's like preventing the good souls from going to heaven.
We call it Jason Goes to Hell.
Yes.
Like Friday the 13th. Jason Goes to Hell, but it's not Jason Voorhees. It's not that Jason.
No. And he's playing
It's
himself.
Jason Statham playing himself.
Yeah.
He has to go to hell and fight demons and ghosts.
Yeah, I love it.
I'll be awaiting your call, Mr. Blumhouse.
Your move, Mr. Hollywood. Anyway.
Maybe we can't make movies.
Maybe not. Thanks for tuning in, y'all, and I hope you enjoyed this episode.
As always, scare well, and see you next time.
Bye.
You know who we are. We're a series of clones of Jason Statham.
We're the podcasters.
Governor. That's a movie.
Yeah.
It's a guy who's like he's left whatever secret government kill thing or whatever, and he just wants to have a life of podcasting. He just wants
to make a podcast.
I'm the podcaster.
Fucking
shoves a microphone in somebody's throat or something.
Yeah, that'd be sick.